Okay, so like this is kind of like a two-part question. Like, what do you think makes this play so popular? Like, what about it? Because there are several versions. There's a modern basketball version of this show stationed in the United States. I mean, set in the United States, and there's also a Bollywood version that is a Hindi film that is the same story, and it's not just Othello. It's Shakespeare. I was watching the Romeo and Juliet version of in Bollywood, and it was a modern adaptation. Same with Othello, modern adaptation in Hindi. Like, what do you think personally is like the most appealing thing to a global audience as opposed to just English speakers?
I think with all of Shakespeare's works, but particularly with this one, there's a piece of pretty much every character that everyone can relate to. So like in Iago, the jealousy that he has, well, most people don't have it to that extreme, but everyone gets jealous and, well, this guy got promoted over me, but I deserve it. And so I think everyone kind of sees that in him. Then everyone also kind of sees Othello, who's worked his way up, and despite the fact that he's a different race and he has all of that against him, that he still made something for himself. So everyone also kind of sees that in Othello that they can relate to. So I think in general Shakespeare's plays are just really relatable to the audience, and they're really basic stories, so they're easy to adapt, I guess, into different mediums and stuff. So like with the basketball, it's easier because it really just takes like a person who's jealous of someone who's getting a better promotion or whatever than somebody else to kind of make the story work. So I guess this story just kind of lends itself well.
And I also think that's part of the genius that Shakespeare was, making things so adaptable and relatable to many different audiences, to the extent where anyone, lower class, upper class, middle class, could take what they wanted from it. Which leads me to my next question: like, how would this story be different if it were told from the perspective of a minor character, or maybe even received from the perspective of like an audience member who may be upper class, middle class?
I think it'd be pretty different because of the fact that you couldn't quite see how Othello is reacting to this in private, I guess, because we saw from the play that he's really troubled by the fact that Desdemona would be cheating on him and all this stuff. So I don't think we'd quite see that, and we might see the characters as more sterile if it was told by somebody kind of outside the circle. And I think also if it was told by one of the minor characters in the story, it would definitely have a much different bias. They might favor Othello more, they might favor Iago more. So yeah.
The minor character that I thought would be interesting to hear from was Rodrigo. Imagine just like being crazy obsessed about some girl and just watching all of this go down and trying to get it. But yeah, and then do you think that any part of this show is offensive to either audiences in the past or audiences nowadays?
I could see it being offensive to people. It is kind of touchy on the race topic, which, like, years and years later still isn't solved exactly. So I could see it still causing some troubles, especially with the different adaptations and how they're presented, because you could see one of the adaptations and never even realize that you're seeing Othello because it's still a very current issue. So I could see a lot of that still causing problems.
Yeah, I think for me, the things that stood out to me were the whole like infidelity thing, like just completely. And it's not that it even went against the sanctity of marriage. It was just that hypothetically he put that paradigm out there that, hey, this happened, and this is the reason that he kills his wife Desdemona. So I think that would be frowned upon both in the past and nowadays. I'm not saying that it's more acceptable nowadays, but the repercussions of doing so nowadays aren't as severe in most cases. And then also it's the whole religion aspect, because there are a lot of sins in this entire play. There is jealousy being the biggest one, and then you can also see like signs of gluttony and all that kind of stuff. But Yeah, and then there are also paradigms of the time, which is like smothering your wife. Like, I know that women didn't exactly have rights back then, but at the same time, like, Amelia obviously stood up for her. Like, she was like, my mistress, like, lay me by my mistress.
Also kind of what you were saying with the sort of the sins, I could see the ending where tons of people just start committing suicide being pretty,
Repenting.
yeah, because they're all, I guess especially when Othello sort of mentions that he doesn't want to kill Iago because death would be a release for him. So I think that's still kind of, I guess, kind of a current issue that relates to that would be like assisted suicide. So some people would see that as a sin and completely wrong, but others just see that as getting out of their pain. So I think that's still a really current issue, but sort of in a different way.
Okay, last comment.
This is just a personal question, do you like the way that Shakespeare, like, just kind of puts a spotlight on issues that are hot topic issues, like infidelity, like you said, you could relate it to assisted suicide, like, if there were a movie adaptation, you could kind of, in a way, craft it to where you could take one of those sins and craft it into a hot topic issue, like maybe abortion, or assisted suicide, or death penalty, or whatever you want it to be. Do you like that style, personally? Because I just kind of think that's something that Shakespeare does in almost all of his works.
Yeah, no, I like it because I think it kind of allows people to look at the conflict in a different way than they normally would, because he doesn't just like throw an issue at your face, he kind of wraps it into characters.
And to end, I am going to break the fourth wall and say that I like it because it also is kind of what our English teacher makes us do. He lets us question things, and he's a great teacher, and you should like him.
I love our English teacher.
Give these guys a hand! All right.
Of the topics, like the race topic, and how that's like could be like offensive back then or today.
I liked how Kush related it to like the Bollywood thing, and then Sabrina was like saying how the play Othello is really adaptable to like a lot of different mediums and such.
I really liked when Kush talked about Othello's dark side, and also when he mentioned a Midsummer Night's Dream, because that's one of my favorite plays. Okay.
I like how they talked about how the narration can change the point of view. Or, well, I mean, it does change the point of view, and how it'd be a completely different story if you changed that.
I like Sabrina's comment about how Othello's race didn't matter all that much to the higher-ups, and how he still managed to make it in the world. And Cush's outside Shakespearean knowledge was also really important to the discussion.
I liked when Kush talked about the British monarchy, how that could be related to like the character of Othello, because it's somebody who's like high up but also like trying to lead people. And then I liked how Sabrina talked about the archetypes within the work of it, and how they can like relate to a bunch of people nowadays. Like, it's very adaptable. So.
Yeah, I liked how Sabrina talked about how like Shakespeare and stuff is popular now because like each character is relatable to other people. What are you all looking at?
I liked at the beginning, Sabrina was talking about how without maybe the war at the beginning, maybe Desdemona and Othello might never have been together because it wouldn't have been like socially acceptable at that time.
I like how Kush broke the fourth wall, to be honest. Yeah, people don't do that enough. I really felt connected to what he was saying. It just made me feel like I was part of the discussion. I really enjoyed that. Thank you for that opportunity.
I liked when Sabrina, when she brought up how like the words that are changing from then to now, and like the villain. I said like the villain's like such a terrible word then, but like now it's like evolved to mean like nothing big. So.
I liked how at the beginning Kush was saying how Othello's darker side could possibly represent, his darker skin tone could represent his darker side.
I liked when Kush was talking about how like the whole play represents like class struggles and like racial struggles and gender struggles too.
I liked when Sabrina was talking about how Othello doesn't truly hold any power, it's just superficial, and that the people hold the power.
I like the same comment Kyle pointed out from Cush when he said, that it can relate to like the sort of structure of the monarchy in England, which really relates to Shakespeare and takes the historical and sort of cultural political context to more of a worldwide realm.